What up everybody, Blaze One Sports back at it again with another video. And today we're going to talk about how Nate Diaz beat the UFC. UFC 279 happened this past weekend and Nate Diaz was set to fight Khamzat Chimaev in the main event UFC 279. And if you're a fight fan and you know anything about fighting, you know there's no way in hell that fight should have been made. Just based on the rankings alone, Nate Diaz is not ranked, and Kamzat is going to be fighting for a title here. Like after his next fight, he should have been fighting for a title now. So Kamzat is pretty much next in line for a title shot, and Nate Diaz isn't even ranked. I think Kamzat's ranked number 2 or 3. So this fight should never even have been made by the commission. Like no one even should approve this fight. And as a fight promoter, like from a business standpoint, you wouldn't want to make this fight because it makes no sense. Like as a fight fan, I hated this fight, Kamzat versus Nate, because it made zero sense at all. And it made so much zero sense that you could see the reason why the UFC made this fight. And it was crazy because the UFC just made this fight because they wanted Nate Diaz to lose. They wanted Nate Diaz to get smashed, embarrassed, and humiliated. So, so Nate Diaz was in his last fight of his contract, and as you guys know, UFC is crooked as fuck when they come to contracts. Dana White has a mob background. He's not part of the mob that I know of, but his friends, the Fertitta brothers, it's been said that they have mob ties or whatever. Just in interviews and when people talk about them, they bring it up. Nothing, they don't serious, but they mention it. The Fertitta brothers having mob ties, and then Dana White ran from Whitey Bulger's people back east when the mob was dealing with him. So big sports, big money, mob ties, it's all crooked, so who knows what's going on. But anyways, their contract's set up to where even if you fight out your last fight of the contract, the UFC still has some control over you. They have a right to match any deal you get to keep you there. They won't let you leave. And they also have a clause to where if you win, they have a couple other clauses that I'm not getting into, but they have one where if you win your title, you have to come back to defend the belt because Dana White hates when champions leave. That's why there's bad blood with GSP. GSP left as a champion. Dana White tried to take the belt from him with Johnny Hendricks. See, this is the greedy part and the crookedness of the UFC. They're so crooked and greedy. It's so transparent, and it's like they don't even care. But years ago, when GSP tried to leave, his last fight of the deal, Dana White talked shit about him in the press conference after the Johnny Hendricks fight, and Dana White said, "No, GSP's not going to be here. He's in a hospital right now. He's all banged up. He's bad. Like Johnny Hendricks fucked him up." And then, like 20 minutes later, GSP comes walking out to the press conference. Dana White shocked. GSP was beat up, but Johnny Hendricks was most likely on PEDs, on steroids. GSP probably too, but Hendricks is a power puncher, so Hendricks teed off on GSP's face and really beat him up bad. But GSP nonetheless got the win, and GSP retired after that. Dana White would GSP for years tried to get out of his contract. Dana White would not let him out of his contract. So years later, GSP comes back, fights Bisbing for the title, wins the title, promises Dana White he'll defend it, and then he retires again. Haha, funny. Slapped Dana White in the face, but that's what Dana White gets. So that's why Dana White hates GSP. Anyways, that's one example. GSP, Anderson Silva, Nate's brother Nick, tons of fighters. Dan Hendo Henderson. Who else? There's too many fighters to name. The UFC does not want to let their stars out of their contracts. Even if the fighter fulfills his side of the agreement and fights out his whole contract, the UFC's greedy ass still does not want to let him out of the contract. That's why they have all kinds of different matching clauses, and if you win, you have to defend your belt, blah, blah, blah. So UFC does not want to let Nate Diaz out of his contract because Dana White tries to play it off like Nate's not a big star, but right now Nate is the biggest star in the UFC. Win or lose, he's still a star. People even love him when he loses. And his brother Nick hasn't fought in years, hasn't won a fight in years, and he's still a big star in the UFC. So right now it's Nate and Conor McGregor are the UFC's two only stars, and Conor's not fighting. So there's no way Dana White does not want to let Nate Diaz leave. But this was Nate Diaz's last fight on the contract. and he knew Nate was not going to come back, so they wanted to send him out on a loss to devalue him because everyone knows Nate is going to go fight Jake Paul next for big money. So Dana wants to ruin that for Nate after everything Nate's done for the company. Dana can't just let him go make some money. So like Dana White hasn't made enough money off these fighters. And another video that's going to be coming, the WME invasion. Oh my God, it's so annoying. I hate the UFC for this. Ever since the UFC got sold to WME, the talent agency for actors and stuff, all you see is cameos of these stupid actors on the UFC events, like stupid ass Megyn Kelly, and I think that's her name, Megyn Kelly, Machine Gun Kelly, and Megan Fox, like with those two little Illuminati trolls running around sucking on their red lollipops and throwing out these Illuminati messages and shit. Like they don't even know nothing about fighting. These people and stuff were never even in the UFC broadcast. Now every single damn UFC pay-per-view, I watch them all. They show them like multiple times. Travis Barker, fuck the Kardashian. It's like, oh my God, get these idiots out of here. I'm here to watch fights. I don't want to see this Illuminati propaganda bullcrap on the UFC. So the WME invasion video dropping soon. Be on the lookout for that. But let me know in the comment section what do you think about that. Ever since WME came into the picture, you see stupid ass Machine Gun Kelly, some wannabe rapper, rock star, whatever, some Illuminati plant with his girlfriend Megan Fox, the dumb Kardashian, Travis Barker all over the screen. Like, come on, bro, it's totally obvious. Like, am I the only one that notices this? But anyways, that's another video that I've been wanting to make for a long time. That one's coming up. But let's get back to Nate Diaz, how he beat the UFC. Dana White didn't want to let him out of his contract. He knew he wasn't coming back. He's one of his biggest stars, doesn't want to let him go. So he says, you know what? Instead of giving him the most common sense fight, like the fight that happened, Nate Diaz versus Tony Ferguson, or an opponent like that, maybe Jose Aldo at lightweight, maybe that's pushing it, but instead of giving him an opponent that's around his skill level at this time of his career, they wanted to send him out on a big loss. Khamzat, nobody wants to fight Khamzat. Everybody's scared to fight Khamzat. Nate stepped up to fight him. He don't care. So Nate was basically sacrificing himself to get out of his contract. Everybody knew it. Everybody could see it. Dana White would lie about it, but it's only obvious. If you're a fight fan, if you follow, you know what's going on. It's obvious. Khamzat had no business fighting Nate. So it was going to probably be worse. Another a repeat of Nate Diaz versus Rory McDonald. Go look at that. That was a sad fight. Rory McDonald just manhandled and treated ragdoll Nate Diaz like a little girl, because the Diaz brothers are notoriously not strong. You know, they're weak in the muscle department. So wrestlers just manhandle them. But anyways, Nate, the Diaz brothers are still my favorite fighters, up there with Hendo Henderson. But yeah, so Khamzat was going to crush Nate, everybody's opinion. And Dana White was going to send Nate Diaz out on a loss, get his ass whooped, and then try to devalue him. So that's what kind of good guy Nate Diaz is after everything that's what kind of good guy Dana White is, how he treats his fighters. After everything they do for him, he doesn't want to see them make no money. Dana White took away the fighters' rights to have sponsors on their shorts, their banners. He took away all that stuff because he couldn't, or his company couldn't profit off of it. So they throw their sponsors in and they give the fighters a cut of it. Isn't that greedy as fuck? That's what I would say. Fuck the UFC. Fuck Dana White if I was a fighter. So let me guys know what you guys think in the comment section. Nate Diaz beats the UFC. He gets his final fight of his contract. The plans of the UFC backfire on him, and Khamzat's dumbass misses weight, so he can't fight. The UFC's biggest fear. So now what should have happened in the first place happens. The whole card gets shuffled around to the fights that should have been made in the first place. And Dana White's plan for Nate Diaz to go out on an L and get smashed by Khamzat is ruined. Nate Diaz goes out on a hero. The whole MMA community rejoices. Everybody's happy, rejoices. Nate Diaz does what many can't, and he beats UFC at their own game and gets out of his fight contract. Last fight of the deal, UFC planned on him getting smashed. It didn't happen. And now he is out of his deal almost, because even though he fought his last fight, UFC still has like 6 months to match a deal, which they probably won't. So Nate Diaz gets his last fight and he wins, and he's looking for a big money deal. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Nate Diaz beats the UFC, fights out his final fight, and gets the victory. Thoughts, comments, questions, opinion in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Blaze One Sports.